What is up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York, and on the phone we got part two with 10 years. This time we are here with Brian. Thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, it's awesome to have you here. It was great to be able to talk to Jesse yesterday to really discuss like the vocal part and the creative process. But for you, how was the making of Violent Allies? Did it feel like you were just picking up where you left off after How to Live as Ghosts, or was this like a new start in a way for 10 years?
Every record has such a different feeling to it, and like this one in particular was we got reunited with Howard Benson, so he did our Feeding the Wolves album, and I just knew that he was the right guy to go to for this record. The songs that we were writing and the way that Jesse needed to sound, I felt like in order to convey the lyrics properly and all that, like I just knew that Howard was going to be the right guy. So it was nice getting back to work with him. He's got a different approach than a lot of the other producers that we've worked with. So that was good and refreshing. And I stayed busy with this one because, I did drums, bass, guitar, and a bunch of like synth and key programming and stuff. So it was it was never a dull moment for me, because the second I would get done, doing guitars on something, I'd have to switch to bass and have to wrap my brain back into what I needed to be doing there. So it was definitely a lot of fun, but we came to LA to work this time. We weren't going out and partying like we used to in our younger days, and I just I had a lot on my plate this time, but I like that, so I kind of thrive in the chaos. Mm-hmm. So it was fun, but had to stay focused.
Well, I mean, from listening to the first two singles, which is The Shift and The Unknown, it seems like it was very focused. It almost seems like you're able to like combine your many different sounds into one hodgepodge of an album.
Yeah, and I mean, the writing is always evolving, and even though, the core members of the band, being myself and Matt and Jesse, have been there since the Autumn Effect, it's the sound is different, but there's still threads of familiarity there. So I think that as writers, this album, we really found a way to create really like I don't know the best way to say it. Maybe like they're really dense with groove and hooks and stuff, and we've been trying to get to this level of writing for a long time, but there's just we were able to self-edit a lot, and then of course getting to Howard again, Howard really put a lot of pressure on us and a lot of he had a high standard of where he wanted these songs to be, and when we showed up to LA, we had like 20 or 25 ideas or something like that, and he chopped, more than half of those. Actually, probably he chopped about 3/4 of our ideas. So what we ended up doing was we got to LA, decided on a first batch of 5 songs to record. We recorded those first, and then he made us take like 2 weeks off to write more songs. So we kept a couple more songs that we showed up to LA with, and then in that couple weeks off after we recorded the first 5, we ended up writing a few more songs like brand new while we were out there, and that ended up making it on the album. So it was a really different approach, but ultimately it was good. We were just trying to find the best possible songs.
Mm-hmm. Did playing with Brave the Royals at all and doing that work at all maybe influence 10 years in a way, or do you try to keep those completely separate entities?
I think, of course I try to keep them separate, but because I'm the majority writer in 10 years, as well as, BTR, Brave the Royals for me is kind of like a solo project type thing. So the one biggest influence that doing the BTR thing helped, or the biggest way that it influenced my writing with 10 years was that I really had been, the past few years, I've been writing so many songs that I think that, it's just like with anything else. The more you do something and the more repetition you have there, you can fine tune your process a lot better. And I've written in the past, I could say maybe 3 years, probably 200 or 250 songs, whether it be for Brave the Royals or just stuff that I was just writing for the sake of writing, just to stay busy and to keep exercising that muscle. And I think that ultimately that's what really influenced my personal writing the most on this album, was the fact that I had been writing so much. And there definitely are elements in like The Unknown that started from sessions writing stuff for Brave the Royals or whatever, but ultimately those were pieces of ideas and stuff, and then Jesse obviously has a different lyrical or vocal approach than I do particularly. So I think just the sheer fact of writing so many songs over the last handful of years really helped, and it's just improved my writing and helped work out a lot of the kinks that I thought were things that I needed to improve on.
You ever worry that like the songs you leave out or don't show anybody could be a B-side one day and just be the biggest hit you ever made?
I mean, we definitely have thought about that, and it's funny because for instance, The Unknown, that was a song that I originally wrote for Brave the Royals, but then but I didn't even release on my last BTR EP, because I was like, I don't know, something doesn't feel right about it, or there's something not quite there. But then the next evolution of that idea becomes The Unknown for 10 years, and the song, I love the song. So, I think you're definitely right that there are moments when there's an idea that maybe didn't get completed or something that could be something special. One example for us of that was the song Russian Roulette that's on our Division album. That song, I wrote the majority of that music when I was 14 in my first band as a freshman in high school.
Oh, wow.
And it's weird because that idea started that long ago, but didn't finally turn up as Russian Roulette until whenever the Division album came out, years and years later. So it's weird how songs sometimes evolve, or how sometimes you really hit a dead end with them too. We've definitely had a lot of songs where there's like one cool idea, but then you can't really take it anywhere. So you never know, because songs like that might finally come to fruition and you figure it out years later, or they might fall to the wayside and be part of that batch that's like in the throwaways. So you never know.
Was a lot of songs, was it just Russian Roulette, or was songs like Actions and Motives or any of the other songs like from your younger days as well?
Well, from that era, it was mainly like Russian Roulette, and then what a lot of people don't know is that Through the Iris and Wasteland, those songs were written back in like 2001, even though the Autumn Effect didn't come out until 2005.
Wow.
So it was really weird for us, because we had been playing Wasteland and Through the Iris and some of those songs that ended up on the Autumn Effect. We had been playing those songs for 4 or 5 years before like Wasteland got big. So when we got signed by Universal and put out Wasteland as a single and the Autumn Effect as an album, that was 2005. And so it was brand new to the world at that point. But, for us, we're like, man, this is crazy, because we've been playing Wasteland at shows when there was 5 people there back in 2001.
Was Mike Underdown singing it?
No. Jesse was the original, or not the original singer in the band, but Jesse was with us when we wrote that song, but Jesse started in 2001.
Okay.
So we had Mike from 1998 until, I guess, 2001. And then when he left, we found Jesse, and we ended up writing Wasteland like later that year or something. So it's been around for a very long time, so for us, again, it was really strange when hearing that song on the radio, because that song for us was like old news, but of course it just had some sort of magic to it that that ended up working really well at radio and made our career. So I'm glad that we didn't just try to move on from it, because it still had a lot of life in it.
Yeah. Well, I mentioned this to Jesse yesterday, but like if you played me like a minute of a song, whether it's instrumental or with vocals, I could tell that this would be off of Into the Half Moon, or that would be off of The Autumn Effect, or Minus the Machine, etc. So, like, is there like a preconceived idea of how you want something to sound? Like, I think it's fair to say that Into the Half Moon is probably the heaviest 10 Years album, and then like, The Autumn Effect is very atmospheric. Like, do these ideas, like, do you go into songwriting mode knowing this is what we want to do, or does it kind of just happen that way?
Oddly enough, it does just kind of happen that way. And back when we did Into the Half Moon, the bands, obviously we were obsessed with like Deftones and Slipknot and Pantera and stuff, and having Mike Underdown on vocals back in that era of the band, he was more of an amazing aggressive vocalist and had a crazy scream to him, and like we were kind of the band was really leaning in the direction of trying to be that super heavy, screamy type thing, and then and we based the music at that time off of the strength of what Mike could do vocally. So that's why him being a great aggressive vocalist made us want to be an aggressive band musically. But then when he left and we found Jesse, we realized, like, okay, sometimes it's really cool to have the heavy riffs, but then him doing the melodic thing. But since Jesse doesn't do the super aggressive vocal thing, he's more melodic, it really did push us musically in a different direction as well. So, it's interesting how that side of it has kind of panned out. But as far as the albums go, I rarely go into it with a preconceived idea of how I want the whole thing to sound. I kind of just let the songs start to form, and then the songs themselves and the ideas kind of determine the sound of that record. But there is truth in the fact that each album does have a very distinct sound to it. But I don't think we ever really pre-planned before the songwriting started. That just happens during the songwriting process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is very, very organic in a way. Do you have a theoretical element behind your guitar work? Like, do you know what scale or key you're working off of, or are you on the more self-taught side?
No, I knew some music theory at one point. When I was like 17, I was studying classical guitar with a really amazing instructor that really pushed me to learn more theories. So I did go down that rabbit hole for just a couple years, but honestly now I've forgotten most of the theory that I did know, that what little I did know, and it really is more based on feeling, and I try to write stuff that's emotionally striking to me and the other guys, but theory has never been my strong suit. So it's really, for me, it's based more on the feeling. And this album, though, in particular, was the first album that we ever used the drop B tuning and used a baritone guitar on for the whole album. So
is Violent Allies going to be heavier now because of that?
To me, there are some heavier songs on it. And what's also fun, in my opinion, is that the first couple songs that we've released, it's really, you can't say what the album sounds like exactly just from those two songs, because in my opinion, the album in general doesn't sound like The Shift exactly, and the album in general doesn't sound like The Unknown exactly. And even those two songs are very different from one another. And then we might be releasing another song before the album drops to streaming, and that one is nothing at all like The Shift or The Unknown. So
wow.
Yeah, so it's the album is definitely all over the place, but the one thing that I knew early on in the writing process that I did want to do was bring back some of the interlude moments like we did on The Autumn Effect and we did on Division. So like for instance on Division, even though we didn't title these pieces, there's a couple instrumental pieces on there that I've always called planets. And like so on Division, there's two pieces that I call planets 1 and 2, and then on this album, this many years later, and that many records later, we're bringing back the planets interludes, and we have planets 3 and 4 that will be on Violent Allies, which I think like maybe it was just one of those things where I think the fans like it, but even beyond that, for me as a creator, I wanted to create a record that someone could put on track 1 and just let it play while they're doing stuff around the house or whatever, or wanting to go to some place, internally and connect with the music. And I wanted it to feel like, like really listening to an album. And I know that a lot of people now with how Spotify is and Apple Music and the digital streaming platforms, maybe they're just making a playlist and maybe they're just listening to the singles, and that's fine. But my goal for this would be to have somebody put the record on and let it play start to finish. And to me, that's the most true way to digest Violent Allies. It's not just from one song or a single. It's really from taking in the whole thing.
Well, I've always said this. I mean, some artists are kind of like, don't really like this label, but I've always considered 10 years to be kind of experimental. So, for a little, like, rant here, but, like, a lot of people, like, because everybody likes to compartmentalize everything, a lot of people kind of put you in the same category as bands like, Breaking Benjamin or Red or any of those bands. But, like, I've always thought that, like, look, there's going to be people who look at your music like you guys are Emperor, and then, to, like, the metal elitists, you guys are going to be like pop music. So it almost seems like you win in every aspect and you can't win in others.
Oh, dude, tell me about it. And I couldn't agree with you more. We have a weird place that we fit. And it's tough because I think that early on we've always embraced the experimental side, but it just so happened that our big successes have come from more concise radio single format type songs. But I think that's it's a tough one to judge a book by its cover because for the most part, a lot of people know us as the band that did Wasteland or Fix Me or the more well-known songs. But I think as you dig deeper into the catalog, there's a vast array of material there that's not just our albums aren't just 10 or 12 songs of wannabe singles. I think that we do try and paint a full picture there. But yeah, it is tough to figure out where we fit because we do have the commercial side and then we do have the experimental side. And like you said, fans of prog rock and experimental rock, we look like Miley Cyrus to them, but then to the people that want just the straight commercial rock stuff, they don't understand some of our album tracks or the interludes and things like that. So
yeah.
We kind of fit in our own little universe, and I'm happy with that.
And yeah, I think it's great. You need to do like the most absurd tour, like do a tour with Taylor Swift and then do a tour with Cannibal Corpse.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
yeah. And I think it. And correct me if I'm wrong on this. This could just be me being like a weird assumption or overthinking. Could it also maybe be like the region that you're from as well? Because like coming from Tennessee, like it's the home of Red, but it's also the home of Skillet. It almost seems like Nashville or Knoxville. It almost seems like that region is kind of like known for what I like to call octane rock in a way.
Could be. Where we're from is a really interesting kind of breeding ground for musicians because there is that brand of octane rock stuff that is prevalent around here, but we also have like the generation that is a little bit older from us. Like, for instance, I grew up on the same road basically as Nick Raskulinecz, the producer that did How to Live as Ghosts, and he did multiple like Foo Fighters records and Deftones and Alice in Chains. So I lived on the same road as Nick, and also as Brian Bell from Weezer, the guitar player in Weezer. So like, when I was young, they're a generation older than me. So probably when I was in elementary school or something, they were in high school. But we all went through the same high school at different times. And then also Brent Smith, the singer from Shinedown, he grew up here as well. So it's an interesting spot, and more musical, I think, than people suspect for rock music, especially with Nashville being known as like the country music capital. But Knoxville and Tennessee in general definitely breeds some rock.
Yeah, of course. And going back to the experimental sound, and I mentioned this as well in the other interview, that like you guys have toured. Like I know, like you opened up for like Hatebreed in Australia one time, and you like played with bands like Disturbed. But I also saw you on the Apocalyptica tour. So it seems like you're able to get on almost any tour and make it work, right?
Well, yeah, we definitely try to, and for us, I think we realize the importance of diversifying the touring side of things for us, because beyond the fact that we want to be exposed to a wide variety of fans and music listeners, we're also fans of such a wide variety of things. So something like Apocalyptica is so musically impressive and intricate and amazing that it's kind of it's fun for us to branch out a little bit, and there's bands even like Circus Survive and Thrice and bands like that do the kind of the more post-hardcore type style and things like that we love, that we would love to tour with and things. So I think that we have built a little bit of a house that can be out with Breaking Ben and Chevelle in 3 Days Grace, but then on the next run go and do something a little more off the wall, which is fun, because we've and even here's a good example too. We were out touring back, I can't remember, I think it was the Feeding the Wolves tour cycle, but we were doing tours with like 3 Days Grace and bands like that, but then we went out with Hollywood Undead. Wow. And that band is so different from the mainstream rock stuff that we normally toured with, that it was a weird like shock to our system, but we developed some amazing fans from that. In fact, we had people that traveled even like last year to see us from Japan and stuff, that didn't know who we were ever, but they came to America to see Hollywood Undead, and we happened to be opening for them, and then now we've developed these lifelong fans from people that didn't know about us until we toured with Hollywood Undead. So that is really cool to me, that even though they're so different, they've embraced what we do, and can feel it, so that's really cool.
And then you went out with From Ashes to New, which has a similar style, so it clearly worked out in your favor.
Yeah. I mean, I think just being diverse now is the name of the game, because especially with, some of the most successful bands, they're all over the map with their style. And, sometimes you have bands like Disturbed or Five Finger that really have a niche sound, and they do what they do and they stick with it, and it really works. But I think for us, we're a little bit all over the place, and that also is kind of a display of how vast our musical influences are, even just internally amongst the band. Like what I'm listening to right now, I'm sure is going to be very different from what Matt's listening to right now, and what Desi's personal Spotify looks like. We're all kind of very different in that regard, and so it helps create something unique, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one market that maybe you guys should give a try is maybe the more progressive shows, like maybe tour with a band like Tesseract or Periphery.
Yeah, I would love that, honestly, and we've talked about that, and there's a band that does actually tour with those bands called Issues
I love
that we
them.
were trying to get out with them recently, and then of course all this pandemic stuff happened. So we're definitely looking in that realm. And I think that there's, that's one of those things where I think that we could win some fans from that, and then there's obviously going to be the cross-armed, pretentious fans that are going to look at us and be like, "Oh, they're terrible. They're radio rock. What are they even doing here?" But
The guitar solos aren't 11 minutes.
yeah, exactly. So, but the one thing that after doing this for so long that we've definitely learned is that you can never please everybody. So the only thing that we can do at this point is create music that we love, that we can stand behind, and that we're proud to play. And then we get out there and just get to work. Because there's, like if we're trying to please, our diehard fans that only love the Killing All That Holds You Autumn Effect era of the band, then if we made a record for them, then we're going to piss off everybody that wanted Feeding the Wolves, and stuff like that. So we just realize that we have to just be proud of what we're creating at any given time, and know that we're never going to be able to please everybody.
Mm-hmm. And that leads me to my final question, actually, because next year is seeing the 20-year anniversary of Into the Half Moon. I thought maybe since it's like the 20-year anniversary of the debut of 10 years, could we maybe be expecting something fairly exciting for 2021? Obviously, tours aren't happening at all right now, but you're going to have Violent Allies out. It's going to be awesome. 20 years celebrating 10 years. Can we be expecting something new?
Man, I don't know. Right now is such a strange time for even trying to forecast what we're going to be doing, because this year we were actually going to do a fan summit show where we were going to play Feeding the Wolves in its entirety for its anniversary, and for its 10-year anniversary, and that show got canceled because of the pandemic and everything. So we're just kind of like, at this point, we're really hoping that people are going to connect with this new album, and then next year there's a million things that we would like to do special and get out there, and I actually would like to get out and play the Violent Allies album in its entirety as well next year. But I mean, I don't know. I guess we're just in a holding pattern now. So we're gathering up a lot of ideas, and the more time that we're off the road, the more ideas we're getting for things to do when it's go time again. So nothing would surprise me at this point. Because once we get out there, we're going to be like nuts, and I think that the music listeners and the fans and the concert goers are going to be going crazy too. I think everybody's ready for it.
Yeah.
It's going to be a matter of getting to the point where it's we can do it again.
Well, I have a lot of my friends saying I'm never leaving before the headliner ever again. I'm never only showing up for this band ever again. From now on, when there's a show, I'm going to be there from when the doors open to when they're kicking us out. So I've been saying this before, and everybody's telling me to shut the hell up because I might jinx it. This will eventually be over. We don't know when, but it'll eventually be over. And when it does, we will enter the best era of music ever.
See, I agree. I think that there's going to be a new appreciation for it. So at least that's the hope. So we shall see.
Absolutely. But Brian, thank you so much for your time today. Really appreciate it. Great to do a double dose of 10 years this weekend. It's awesome.
Heck yeah, man. Well, again, thank you for having us.
Of course, everybody, we are here with Brian of 10 Years. Violent Allies coming out this September. Be sure to pick it up then. This is Alex from Every New York. We will see you next time.